So here we are again with this game Escape from New York, but this time adding in this New York gangs expansion. It's an expansion that allows at a fifth player to the game, a player who also goes against the heroes or anti-heroes in this case, to the rest of the players, because he is the one who will control New York City in a one versus all game mode. Let's see what this expansion adds and, above all, how to play it. Let's start by seeing what changes in the game setup. We're going to have 2 out of these 4 cubes left over that are used in the normal setup. To fill a mission zone or not, I don't quite remember what the other card said, but the point is, we don't need 2 of these cubes. We have enough with 2 that will be used here. On the bonus points tracker, on this bonus track for New York inmates, and on what is called the booster that this is initially placed according to the number of players, 1, 2, 3, or 4. Well, right now I'm simulating a game of 1 player against 2 players, so I've placed it here. Well, normally this token starts on the bonus B, but throughout the game, since I'm in the middle of a simulated game, I'll now continue and explain how the rules work, how the rounds develop. So over the course of the game, as I was saying, this piece moves up and down. It changes position, and this could also change position, but normally it will stay static in the number of players. Noise also moves similarly to how it does in normal mode, because this player, as you know, in normal games is not human, it's automatic. But in this case, this expansion allows 1 player to control New York City and be a bit more evil, a bit more Machiavellian, and really mess with the other players. And potentially they can win by making the others lose. That's the goal. Okay. Placing the life cubes at each enemy leader's maximum is the same as in the standard game. Well then, let's start the game round. As you can see, I'm playing with Serpiente Plissken and Cabbie, the taxi driver, and against a player controlling New York City. And now, let's assume, for example, it's Serpiente Plissken's turn, who right now, he has a few cards in his hand. He has an item. They're night vision goggles. Has a car and is surrounded by enemies near the library. This car belongs to the green player, as you can see by the green base of the car. They still have some ammo left in their rifle and have leveled up a couple of times. And you need 2 items to reach its maximum level. I'm going to tell you all about it. His hidden personal objectives, well, he has to escape with a raft and needs the fake tape, which he still hasn't found. It's in the deck of items, so those are his personal objectives. And how does the hero or anti-hero's turn play out? Well, in the usual way, as if it were a normal game. We can refer to the standard 9 steps of the game. In normal mode, it basically involves playing 2 cards, because, as you know, flipping a timer card is always optional. It would return all the discarded cards to our hand, but right now, well, Serpiente Plissken doesn't need it because he has a bunch of cards in hand to play too. And you need items, that's for sure. You need to get items, but right now there's no nearby area with items and you're surrounded by enemies. You should get out of there. Let's see what Snake does. Okay, so Serpente plays 2 cards, and you already know that after playing the cards, you have to reveal them one by one. You even have the option to skip revealing one and use your card's special ability. But in this case, it's important to reveal them. Reveal this card, which is a hit and run card, adding 2 noise at the end of our turn. And well, it deals 2 points of damage, so these 2 inmates die and then move. We can move the snake 1 space. Even bringing someone with us, we could already do because we had the card. But well, this card also gives us that ability temporarily. And next, we reveal an adjacent tile. Because we're moving it to the library, Serpiente is interested in getting items to level up, for example, and in the library, if you end your turn there, you'll be able to acquire items. So that was hit and run. And the other card is to take a break, rest for a bit. It doesn't make much noise and lets us return 2 discarded action cards to our hand. Plus we can choose them, so we'll draw, I don't know, maybe the Skull Crusher. It's a very powerful damage card, and this one helps you move, and then they go back to your hand. And since we're taking the card, I could move again, but we don't want to move because we want to use the building's ability. So we'll discard the 2 cards, which will add 3 noise. These get discarded here. And just like in a normal game, we add 3 noise points to New York City. Since there are no enemies within range, we don't take any damage. And now we could level up, but we don't meet the requirements. We don't have the necessary items. Finally, we activate a building in a square if there is one. And yes, there is one in the library. We can draw an item card. And that's exactly what we are going to do. All right, so we draw an item card, and it's exactly the fake tape. We need to win the solo game, so we keep it a secret, so no one knows that we only need to find a raft. We could escape from New York and win the game. Well, Snake Plissken is on the right track to achieve his goals. Next up is New York City, and it's controlled by the 5th player. Let's go with him. Well, look here. This is where the position of the power-up marker cube becomes important, because the noise it is neither below nor has it surpassed the position of the booster. So the player in New York City can't play. They just look at the others with a bored expression. This is a situation where nothing happens, and it's the next hero's turn. And this is something new, a new mechanic introduced by this expansion, and we should keep that in mind. This noise cube always has to be at least below the booster or more to the right. If not, the player just ends up staring at others and yawning. And this, which at first seems like a disadvantage, doesn't have to be entirely, because it's possible that this second cube, this second bonus marker for the inmates, instead of being placed here at a number, there could be a chance that this was placed in one of these bonuses, meaning that the inmates would be harder to kill, deal more damage, or move faster. And if that were the case, since the New York phase is not carried out and the 5th player doesn't take their turn, this cube stays here and the bonus remains for the next player's turn. Meaning, even though this player doesn't take their turn, they can still be problematic if it doesn't play, because this bonus can remain active. Now it's Cabbie, the taxi driver's turn. Okay, so the taxi driver is in his taxi here, in the middle of Central Park. This is the taxi card. These are his discarded cards. He also has an item, a flare gun, which is used to deceive enemies. But what I want to show you are the goals it has. Well, it turns out that the taxi driver wants to escape with the helicopter. That's why he's revealing the Central Park ETAs logically, and he needs the fake tape and doesn't know that he has it. Snake just got it. So I don't know how much the taxi driver will struggle to try a solo victory. He has already leveled up twice and would need to defeat 2 enemies. And until next time, get an item they already have. This flare gun is quite dispensable. And it would serve for this, but first you need to take down 2 enemies to level up if that is what you intend to do. Actually, should also be looking for that darn fake tape, I suppose. Let's see what he does on his turn, because he has a ton of cards in his hand. Well, the taxi driver is going to play these 2 cards, and as you already know, they are played one by one. I made a mistake. This was not the one I wanted to play. I wanted to play this one first. Okay, this is the Molotov cocktail, one of the most famous scenes from the movie. The taxi driver's presentation, let's say, to Snake Plissken, and this allows you to deal 1 point of damage to each enemy in a single space adjacent to the taxi driver, meaning he can take out these 3. We're removing 1 because it doesn't fit on the board, and the other 2 count toward our goal of leveling up. I'm using the wooden ones because I like these wooden pieces more than the plastic ones that come with the game expansions, but I have them there in a box. The other card, alright, the Aster card is where I take you. This allows us to move and reveal an adjacent empty slot, and since we have a car, we can repeat up to 2 more times if we want, adding noise each time we do. We want to move here, but we would have to destroy the car. So what we're going to do is move over here, where the helicopter is, to reveal this square. There's an event. If we repeat the move now, and ignore the events during this movement, by the way. If we repeat the move now, we add 1 more noise point, but we don't have to pay attention to the events. As the card says, this move should have activated an event, but the card allows us to ignore them. And the same goes here. We've added 1 noise point, and we can reveal another tile. Let's reveal another adjacent tile, which would be this one, where an object we place here appears. Okay. And finally, the last move will be to come over here to this point of interest. And you know that as soon as you move to a point of interest, you reveal it. When you reveal this tile, place briefcase number 4 here. So here it is, briefcase number 4 and 3. Enemies, of course, appear, and we can also reveal a tile here. Okay, so here, an additional enemy and a barricade will appear, and at any time during our turn, we can discard an item to fulfill one of the taxi driver's level up objectives. You know, items are discarded face down, but since it's just us and no one's watching, I'll discard them face up so I don't mix up decks. Okay, and we have a car, but the car is useless if there are enemies in your location, so we can't use it, the car, to escape right now. We have to stay there. There's no other choice but to stay here and suffer the damage the enemies are going to inflict on us. Come on, I'm discarding these 2 cards. We said it was 3 noise, and here at the end, 4 more, 7 noise. We discard these cards and move to the 5th player's board. Look, 7 noise, 1, 2, 3, 4, and there are still 5, 6, and 7, 3 more points, and there's noise overload. But with this fifth player mode, this cube never goes back to 0. It stays there though. Though each of those 3 noise saturation points will have a consequence. They become bonus points, and well, they would be 1, 2, and 3. But we cannot go beyond 8. That's the bonus limit on this track. This bonus points indicator works like this. If you reach 8, you cannot move further to the right, even if you earn more points. All right? But right now, the fifth player, or New York City, however you want to see it, is the front runner at the moment. Thanks to our friend, the taxi driver, who is now going to receive damage from the enemies that are within range. And those are these 3, so 3 points of damage. Well, we have to randomly discard 3 cards. Then, by the way, the taxi driver will stay with 2 for now in his hand, so on his next turn, he still wouldn't be obligated to refill one of those timer cards. This would still be optional when there's only 1 card left or none. Then it is mandatory to be able to recover all the cards that you have discarded. You already know. Those are the normal rules of the game. One thing I haven't mentioned before, because it couldn't be done, and because it's one of the rules of the game, in normal mode, in standard mode, is that the taxi driver didn't pick up this briefcase because there are enemies in his tile, so he can't pick up that briefcase. That's why I didn't mention it before, but I'm mentioning it now after taking the damage. The taxi driver can level up. So we remove these enemies, this item. We remove this tile and go to level 3, which it allows us to change a personal objective, and now you can achieve a solo victory. Well, reaching level 3, as you know, according to the standard rules, is a mandatory requirement for achieving a solo victory. Let's suppose the taxi driver thinks he's going to find something interesting in that briefcase and decides to change one of their personal objectives. For example, this fake tape. So we are going to draw all the cards in the general supply for all the players and take a look here. Well, here is the real tape, which could be in a briefcase, or the president's bracelet, which could also be in a briefcase. Well, to make it a bit fun, let's keep with the bracelet as a personal objective, and these cards, without anyone knowing what we're returning, go back to the general supply. These are still the standard game rules. I'm not doing anything extraordinary, okay? And we can't activate no building because there isn't any. So the hero phase has ended. We go back to the fifth player, and now the fifth player has everything in their favor to start making life miserable for the heroes or the anti-heroes, because they have 5 action cards in hand, including one that I acquired recently because Slack appeared on the board. You can see it here in the ring, in this area near the World Trade Center. There's Slack, which is already active, and it's a sewage area, the ring, so it could move quickly around New York to chase players, the rest of the players. The important thing is that the fifth player can play their cards in 2 ways. They can play them for the action described on the card, with or without a booster. I'll talk about the booster now. And to use it, let's say, card action would have to pay the noise points indicated up here on the right. Or they can discard the card. To discard the card, you always pay 1 noise point and gain bonus points, generally 2 bonus points. From what I see, I would discard all these cards without using their actions, and you would increase this bonus token, it would go up by 2 points. And this noise 1 would decrease by 1. Right now, this is obviously not interesting to him. What he is interested in is starting to use the cards for their actions, and the actions are more expensive. What happens? That in addition to the action of each card, he will be able to use this first card that I play, and of course, he will be able to use it with a booster, because the noise marker is below the booster or more to the right, then both effects apply. Alright, so now we just have to decide which card could be the most harmful to the heroes. Alright. But, well, before playing the first card, I'm forgetting something important. And the truth is that the fifth player's turn is very simple, because he only has 2 points, point 10 and point 11. But what I forgot, and the first thing that must always be done when the fifth player takes his turn, not when the noise is below the booster. In that case, nothing needs to be done. But if this is here, the fifth player is going to take their turn. And the first thing to check is if this bonus marker is in any of the bonus spaces. If it is, this marker would go to 0, let's say, or to B. It's the first thing to do in the fifth player's turn. Since this marker was on 8, it wasn't on any of these spaces, granting any bonuses to the prisoners. So there's no need to reset this, no need to bring it to 0. It can stay there. And actually, at any moment, the turn of the player who goes to New York City can decide to place this in any of these bonuses, as long as the bonus is directly below the marker position or to the left. In this case, since it is on the 8, he can choose any of these. If it were on the 4, he could choose this one or this one. If it were on the 3, the same. And this can be done at any moment before playing their cards. They can play a card first and then decide to do this. The important thing is that when placing this on any of these bonuses, they know that the bonus will last until their turn comes again. If this stays here, the bonus won't move, but as soon as this is under the booster or more to the right, and it's their turn again, that's it. The first thing you do is reset it, which is what I just forgot, Osta, and that is point 10 of the New York phase. Anyway, I forgot, partly because I didn't have to do it, but it's important that you know it has to be done. Now we move on to point 11, where we actually can play and or discard cards. And here we can play and or discard as many cards as we want, as long as we can pay with noise. We can play some with the power up, as long as we are on these 3 spaces here. And if we're here, we can keep playing cards, although those won't have the boost anymore, and that will be independent of whether we place this somewhere or not. So, come on, let's start doing some evil actions. Now we can. Let's start with an interesting card. Stop them, which will cost us 5 noise points, and we'll be able to apply the booster, because at the moment of paying the noise, we are below or to the right of the booster, so by paying 5. 3, 4, 5, we are at 10. We are moving to 5. We will be able to pay 3 bonus points, which are these here, to move the power up piece 1 space to the left. So look how powerful this action is. Stopping noise and stopping bonus points, 3. We can move this booster permanently to the marked position, as if we were playing against 1 player instead of 2. And if later, in subsequent rounds, we manage to move a bit more, our turn will almost always be easier. The noise 2 reach 7 or 8. And we've done this thanks to being able to play this card with a booster. We can choose the order in which these actions take place. We could have done the standard action first and then the booster. I started here because it seems really powerful to me. And now we can add a barricade to any space and move up to 3 enemies. All right, so we need to discard this card. Obviously, we discard it here. Honestly, I don't know if the 5th player's card is discarded, face down or face up. But since everyone knows what you just did, it doesn't make much sense to discard it face down. Add a barricade and move 3 enemies. Let's do it. Well, we're going to place the barricade for Cabbie, so he can't escape towards the park. He has to escape this way. That should be his only exit, unless he uses the taxi to break the barricades. Of course, then he could always break the car and keep walking. But for now, you should know that moving that way will be hard. And now we can move up to 3 enemies. Sure, of course, since we have a 5th human player, the enemies can move towards where the 5th player, decides. They can even skip the enemy combat rule, which means the 5th player can decide to move enemies out of an area where there is already an enemy, hero or anti-hero. It's the only standard game rule that can be skipped. He has to follow the rest of the enemy movement rules, but he can move them in any direction he wants, towards the heroes, away from the heroes. He can do whatever he pleases. So let's assume we focus on cornering the cab driver and that a slack comes through this sewer to here, to the helicopter tile, and this other one, he also comes with it, and that's already 2 moves. Why? Because the 5th player imagines that the taxi driver was thinking about escaping by helicopter. He seemed very interested in revealing Central Park tiles, so it's suspected this is one of his personal objectives, and besides, it's easy to trap him in that corner. He still has 1 more move left, so what he will do is give some support to this enemy here. There's a manhole here. He can come directly to this tire. So the cab driver ends up surrounded with this movie, and we continue to play cards, of course. Well, I want to tell you that if before playing the previous card, we had placed this Sun Este here, where we could have done it at any time, the prisoner's movement on the board would have had a bonus of +1. Meaning I could have moved them much further away. I could even, having made a move to get to the position where Snake Plissken is, let's say I didn't care for whatever reason, because I'm saving that move for maybe a stronger attack later. Because now I have to decide. First, I won't be able to use this special card, because it would mean 6 noise points, and I can't afford that. This one would be for attacking. So the heroes, I also have open fire, which would only cost me 4 noise points. To pay the heroes, I would play it without the booster now, because I'm further to the left of the booster position, even though I moved it. This is an option. It's an option I'm considering right now, because it would leave the cab driver without cards, who is currently on a tile with 3 enemies and only 2 cards left, so it would force have to draw a timer cards, which is what interests me. If I want to win the game, I have to make the timer reach 0. So this is a very obvious card we could play, but I prefer to play this other card, time limit, which costs me 3 noise points, because I want to show you how mission cards work, which is the only thing we haven't talked about. Gang's expansion. So I'm more interested in playing this card. I'm going to play it without a booster. The booster would allow me to apply the effect below again. That is, playing this card twice is not applicable, but well, I'll pay 3 and if like case in the card that lets me choose one of these two options, either draw 3 cards from the mission deck, which is this deck. It doesn't have many cards, it has 6, but anyway. You build it and place it here to the right of the 5th player's board. So I could draw 3 cards and reveal one, and shuffle the rest into the mission deck. The thing is, I already have 3 visible, and this is the maximum you can have. Active with displayed missions, so if I draw 3 cards now to add another one, I would have to discard one of those. Not interested. What interests me is the second part of the action, which is to activate all mission cards in play. That is, if I had played it with the booster, I could, for example, activate all the mission cards in play twice. That's what I'm interested in, but anyway, I'll play it without the booster, and I can only activate these cards once. At first, this weapon card lets you take an item token from the board in a zone with an enemy. And that's not happening right now. I wasn't being careful. If I had placed this movement bonus here before taking my first action, could have arrived with any of my inmates at this position here, and now by playing that mission card I could remove this cube, which didn't happen. I am telling you this mainly to show how dumb I can be, and to explain to you how this mission card works. Because if you manage to place 5 cubes of 5 object token, 3, when there are 3 item tokens on this card, a timer tile is discarded. When the timer tiles are discarded by mission cards, the effect doesn't apply. They are just discarded, less time is left. But the negative or positive effect of those tiles doesn't apply. And the mission card, once applied, the final effect is executed, it is removed from the game, it goes back to the box, and all these tokens are returned to the general supply. It's clearly indicated here on the card. Then this one, you also need to apply this other mission, destroy this one, Goldfire. Basically, you need to add a prisoner to the World Trade Center space. And as soon as there are 5 more and at least 1 boss in play, we already have a boss in play because we have slack. We could meet this condition, Goldfire would be destroyed. Heroes or anti-heroes would no longer have that escape route, and a timer tile would be discarded, and this card would be out of the game. Okay, as you can see, I've already applied the effect twice. Il y a completado effect passé, and here comes a 3rd inmate. We're almost completing that mission. And finally, the last card we have is this one, the Unstoppable Armies card. This card allows us to choose any of the red tiles from the points of interest and refill it if it's not already refilled. Then place an enemy on it, and when there are at least 5 refilled points of interest tiles, at least 1 enemy on each of them, we would discard the timer tile, and this card would also be removed from the game. That is, now to apply this, we could do this on the already revealed tile, or we could reveal any rosette that is not yet revealed. And another thing, the player, the 5th player who moves to New York City at any moment can do is inspect this tile secretly to know what's underneath. You can do that at any time too. Let's say I am interested in revealing the Duke's camp. So I revealed the Duke's camp, placed the 3 enemies that appear when the tile is revealed, and we also place 1 more enemy because the card says so. And what else can I tell you about the 5th player? Well, they do not recover discarded cards until they have no cards left in hand, and only then they recover them at the end of the New York phase. So right now, you could keep playing cards, or rather you could keep discarding cards, but you don't have enough noise to discard all three. You could only discard two, which means, well, let's suppose I'm going to do it so you can see it. Let's suppose they discard this, pay 1 noise point, gain 2 bonus points, and now before ending their turn, before stopping playing cards, although they could discard one more, but it doesn't really make much sense anymore because the discard gives them bonus points. So before ending his turn, he decides he wants the enemies to have a range of 1 instead of 0. Now they will have a range of 1 including slack, and that's how the turn of the 5th player, the one who moves to New York City, ends. And now it's a hero's turn again. In this case, it would be Snake Plissken's turn, who tried to play in a way that the noise doesn't go up to 7, so that the player from New York doesn't mess with them again. And this, my friends, is basically Rescue. 1997 Escape from New York, with the expansion for a 5th player from the Gangs of New York. It's very easy, very simple to play. In fact, I think it simplifies the rules of New York City. And the question that remains for me is, how fun can it really be for a 5th player to face 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 43 and so on, or more players, to try to not to leave this dystopian prison that New York City has become in 1997. And now what we do is escape. Let's go.